The parents of Leigh Matthews, Rob and Sharon, will be at the parole hearing of Donovan Moodley at the Johannesburg Correctional Centre this morning. They'll be accompanied by their legal team and supported by Women and Men Against Child Abuse. The Justice and Correctional Services Department reportedly granted a parole hearing because Moodley had served the required amount of time. For more on the story, let's cross live now to our senior reporter, Chriselda Lewis. A very good morning to you, Chriselda. What's happening where you are?
Well, Desiree, we are expecting very shortly the arrival of the spokesperson for the Department of Correctional Services, Singabakho Nxumalo. He is on his way, and as you saw on our sister program, Morning Live, a bit earlier on, Rob and Sharon Matthews, the parents of Leigh Matthews, have already arrived here, speaking to us on the program a bit earlier on, saying today really feels like taking them back that many years when their daughter was abducted and killed by Donovan Moodley. So Leigh Matthews' killer, Donovan Moodley, is looking to be a free man. He is seeking parole after serving only 15 years of his life sentence. The Matthews family expected to make representations to the parole board today here at the Johannesburg Correctional Services Centre, and certainly judging from my conversation with them this morning, they will be asking the parole board not to consider giving Donovan Moodley a parole. They believe that he has never shown any remorse since abducting Leigh Matthews from Bond University. That was back in 2004. You'd recall, Desiree, it held her captive and demanded ransom money from her family after receiving that he shot and killed her. So less than 2 decades now, and Donovan Moodley is making an attempt at being a free man. The parents of Leigh Matthews, as I indicated, will be making oral representations. Their legal team is also here. They're also being supported by Women and Men Against Child Abuse. Nga Murambetsi is an advocacy manager with that organization and joins me now. Nga, a very good morning to you. Thanks indeed for your time. You're here to support the Matthews family. Talk to us a bit about that. This case indeed has been one that has hogged the headlines for many years.
Yes, thank you very much and good morning. We are here today because we feel civil society should be represented. The system as it stands is very murky in terms of who is allowed to go in. As you can see, I'm out here now talking to you, but as indicated previously, we would have liked to have been able to be with the Matthews family. We don't know who's there on behalf of the inmate, and why we want this to be a transparent process. As you have alluded, he has not shown remorse. We don't know what has gone in. 15 years is not enough, as the family already indicated, to show that the justice system has considered what they have gone through.
What is your call? I know that the Department of Justice and Correctional Services have indicated, I think there was not an amendment, I stand to be corrected, I'll speak to Singabakho Nxumalo, the spokesperson for Correctional Services, but was it some change in 2004 that then would sort of make him eligible? Because your concern, according to your statement, is that even the consideration of him being granted the opportunity of a parole hearing.
Yes. So it's an amendment. It actually came by way of 2 separate judgments. It was in 2005, and Judge Patla made a recommendation, put forward rather, that there must be a consideration, because the law was a bit stagnant, that inmates must be granted a review of their sentence in terms of how much they have served in order to be considered for parole. And then there was a subsequent judgment by Judge Van Fake. And this was, if I'm not mistaken, I stand to be corrected, 2013. If Mr. Nxumalo can maybe also reiterate on that, that would be great. But basically, these 2 judgments have now said that a life sentence, as we know it, I mean, you'd assume that a life sentence is a life sentence, can be reviewed and reconsidered, and an inmate can be considered for parole. So we understand that you should be serving 2/3 of your sentence before you are eligible for parole. That's by law. So he has served a stipulated amount of time. But our organization is saying it should not be based only on the legality, what legislature says, because this person is going to be removed from this facility and he's going to be integrated back into society. And after committing such a heinous crime, we want to know, is he rehabilitated? What methods are in place to ensure that he is rehabilitated? Rehabilitation is also premised on remorse. And for you to be remorseful, you have to honor the truth. And if you withhold information, to date, the family, society, South Africa as a whole, who many years ago really was so invested in this case, we don't know what happened. We know there was a freezer at some point. We know she was held in a certain location. He claims that there were certain people. He says he was protecting other people. So what we are calling is, if he truly is rehabilitated, if he truly is remorseful, what are the details leading to that? Because also the purpose of rehabilitating somebody should bring closure to the family. The family has no closure. They don't know what happened to their child. It really is that simple. So we're saying the law, yes, must function, but the law mustn't function at the detriment of victims. And we would like to see this, we are standing here as the media, as a civil society. We're not allowed inside. We don't know why this process is so exclusive. We don't know why the public is not allowed to hear what is the process that happens in parole. We don't know if the victims are being bulldozed to have to accept something. So we are also calling that there must be transparency. If we can sit in a trial, if we can sit in a bail hearing, if we can hear those details, we also deserve to hear what is happening inside the parole board when they are having hearings with inmates, especially inmates that have been sentenced to life.
What message do you think, or precedent you think, the issue of gender-based violence has been one that South Africa has been grappling with for a very long time. You being civil society here, you being Women and Men Against Child Abuse, what message do you think will be sent by mere virtue of the fact that you're here supporting the Matthews family, you would not want to see Donovan Moodley being granted parole? What message would you want this process to send for, other would-be perpetrators? He was convicted of this particular murder. What would you want this to send in light of the challenge that South Africa still grapples with regarding women and child abuse?
Wow. So our president, you will remember, called that he's going to take a very strict stance against gender-based violence. And for us, that means that if the judiciary has put into place a judgment and there's been legislation and it says that perpetrators of gender-based violence, of such heinous crimes, will serve a life term. We want it to be a life term. Now we can just imagine that potential perpetrators who are currently in prison, know that it is a catch and release system. So the Department of Correctional Services, they have got a mandate to correct. And that is also something that we are saying, it shouldn't be a statistical thing. We don't want to know you had 1,000 inmates and then you've released 650. That doesn't show us what goes into the process. Because we have a social contract with them. We want them to protect us as citizens. And we want this message to be that we are not taking a wishy-washy approach. A life sentence is a life sentence. You perpetrate such crimes, you land up in prison, the system will deal with you. We want our laws to stand. We don't want them to be reimagined in a way that makes us feel unsafe. Because this man is going to be released into a community that has got young women like Leigh, into a community where he has access to resources. We don't know if he's rehabilitated enough to not consider committing the same crime. We don't know that. So we want this to be a process, and the outcome of this to communicate that we are not taking we're not taking this lightly. We want a life sentence to be a life sentence. Rapists are being released back into our communities. We know many stories of parolee committing the exact same offense with the exact same MO, targeting the exact same victims, and they've been released out of our system. So we want accountability. When they are released, who is in that process? Who's in that process that's happening with the parole? We want to know a psychologist, evaluations, and we need the whole system to come together. It can't be a disjoint. Correctional services can't be releasing prisoners, and yet legislation says it's a life sentence. Then that's undermining, where we have a situation where there is undermining of the legislation because, there are other contributing factors. Our prison state, we don't know if they have adequate resources. So that can't be the burden of the victim. The victim is carrying another burden already. So we want this system to work as it says it works.
Ngabora Metsi, thank you very much indeed for your time. Women and Men Against Child Abuse here supporting the family of Leigh Matthews. We're expecting, Desiree, if it already hasn't gotten underway, that oral representations that the parents of Leigh Matthews will be making here to the parole board. You would know that her killer, Donovan Moodley, is looking to be a free man after spending 15 years of his life sentence. We're hoping to speak to the Department of Correctional Services in just a moment. We know that the spokesperson will be with us very shortly. We hope to bring you that live if you do have some time on the program there. I know you're covering quite a lot today, but certainly this is certainly one of the cases to be watched in this instance. You'd recall back in early 2000 when Leigh Matthews had been abducted from Bond University and was of course subsequently found killed, and Donovan Moodley was the man who was found guilty of that and sentenced. So that parole process, the oral representations are getting underway this morning, and judging, as I indicated, Desiree, from what the family told me this morning, Rob and Sharon Matthews, they don't want Donovan Moodley a free man.
Chriselda Lewis, some very strong arguments there being made by Ms. Ramezi, and we hope that the parole board will be considering those. But hope to speak to you soon. Chriselda Lewis there for you.